Rich Soos, author of over 20 volumes of poetry, including his latest, Cell Notebook. He's also the publisher of Choya Needles Magazine and Choya Needles Press, which does local Morongo Basin authors and art books. Rich, you mentioned that your latest book of poetry, Cell Notebook, started off as a novel. How did it end up being pared down into a book of poetry?
Well, it was actually 7 notebooks that were written in cells, different cells, because we all put ourselves in cells, and trying to work it through. I thought of making it into a novel. There were sketches in there, and I sat down, and there was enough work in there to start putting things together and add to it to make it into a novel. But the more I started writing, like he walked 3 steps around the cell and then 4 steps to the right, and the more I started writing things like that, the more I was bored. So what I did was go through and just edit out the essence of what I wanted to say in each little page. And then by that time I had 300-400 poems, so I worked with some friends and pared it down to the essential poems.
And you also run Choya Needles Press. What was your motivation for starting the press, and what are your future plans?
Well, it actually came about the same time as Cell Notebook because I was forced to retire from my job. I was old enough to retire. They tried to convince me to retire and I refused, so they kind of pushed me out. So I retired, and I'm sitting there going, what am I going to do for the next 20 years of my life? I know I got at least 20 years left in me. So I'm going, well, the first 20 years before I started teaching, I worked as a editor of a magazine. And I thought, well, I could read through my old magazine for the next 20 years and just wallow in the past, or I can start a new magazine. And that came about because I came up to Joshua Tree every summer for since 1972, so I don't know how many years that is. A lot of years. And we would come for a month every summer, and the one thing that hit me that was consistent, that I always remembered, was the choya needles. Getting in my hands, getting on the bottom of my feet, and pulling them out. Those things would leave scars for months and months and months, and the pain of pulling them out and stuff. So I thought, okay, that's a good name for a magazine. So that began a new future for me. And that's how it started. So I worked 6 months before I came here using Facebook to find local writers and get to know them and introduce myself to them. And some of them even knew me, which was really a great thing. And through that, was able to start as soon as I got here. I got here in January, and we had our first issue out by February.
Wonderful. And do you have any advice for young writers and aspiring publishers?
My advice for young writers is just keep at it. And publishers, aspiring publishers, be prepared to spend a lot of money and not see much back, because, you know, if you're thinking of poetry publishing especially, there's no income in that. But if you work toward, I think my advice that I've learned over the many years is stay local. Keep it local, then at least you got support, local support, and somebody to go cry on their shoulder.
Well, there you have it, for the love of it, and staying local. This is Rich Soos, publisher of Choya Needles Press and author of the new volume of poetry, Cell Notebook. You can find links to both of those beneath the video. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Jean-Paul.